Good afternoon. My name is Professor Alistair Sinclair Smythe. Batman and Robin are facing off against two new villains, Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. Dr. Victor Freeze has to survive inside a special suit as he's unable to live outside of sub-zero temperatures, while Poison Ivy was mutated in an accident involving plant chemicals and has a plan to basically take over Gotham and ultimately the world with her hybrid carnivorous plants. The situation is further complicated by Alfred dying of a terminal disease, and the arrival of Barbara, his niece, who plans to take him away from this life of servitude for the little time he has left. When Mr. Freeze is captured, Ivy breaks him out of prison with the assistance of Bane, a genetically enhanced super soldier using plant-based serums, in the intention of using him to freeze Gotham and then repopulate it with her carnivorous plants. Mr. Freeze's wife had previously been diagnosed with the same terminal disease as Alfred, and as a consequence is likewise cryogenically frozen, but Poison Ivy attempts to kill her by deactivating her cryotube, and tells Freeze that Batman and Robin are responsible for her death. Whilst they attempt to use a giant telescope to freeze all of Gotham City, Batman, Robin, and the new sidekick Batgirl show up and proceed to stop them, in the process managing to turn Mr. Freeze to the side of good and finding a cure for Alfred. The characters in this film suffer from obsession. Pamela Isley, aka Poison Ivy, wants to create poison plants to take over the world, to protect them against the encroachments of mankind. Her associate, Dr. Jason Woodrow, had been stealing her plant toxin samples to create his own obsession, Bane of Humanity, an enhanced super soldier from volunteer prisoners, of which only one has actually managed to survive. He meets his end at Ivy's poison lips, and she and Bane head off to Gotham to attempt to fulfill their grand plan. Dr. Victor Freeze, aka Mr. Freeze, has a similar obsessive desire. He wishes to protect his wife, a woman who had suffered from a terminal disease known as McGregor syndrome, and as a consequence had been cryogenically frozen by her husband, before an accident doused him in likewise coolants and forced him to wear a special suit to keep himself alive outside of sub-zero temperatures. He is driven by a desire to get enough funding to save her, which is why he commits crimes and steals diamonds, which are used to enhance his suit, possibly focused to special diamonds in order to create the low temperatures needed. All their actions are also related to the idea of controlling death. Bruce became Batman to make sure that other people wouldn't suffer the same fate as he did. Parents shot down in front of an 8-year-old child by a man in an alley with a gun. Barbara wants to keep her uncle happy for the remainder of his life. Despite knowing that she can't cure his disease, she's trying to take him away from her, quote, idea of the life of servitude, unquote, in order to make sure he's happy. Bruce is determined to keep Dick safe against all odds, despite the fact he's just as skilled as him, and probably a bit more limber given that he's a bit younger. And Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy both have their own desires of controlling death, with Ivy wanting to save plants from the depredations of man, and Mr. Freeze wanting to save his wife, even if he has to kill millions of people in Gotham to do it. In the end, the cooperation of the new Bat family are what saves the day. By working together, they're able to overcome Bane by disconnecting the venom tube, pumping the dangerous chemicals directly into his brain. They're able to overcome Mr. Freeze and convince him to give up a sample of the drug that could cure Alfred. His researchers had allowed him to cure the disease in its earlier stages, in exchange for the safety of his wife, who had been found and reactivated after Poison Ivy had attempted to deactivate her cryotube. Bruce's actions are related to a tragedy as a child. And thanks to this film, he gains basically what he lost: a family. He has the adoptive son of Dick. He has a adoptive daughter of sorts in Barbara. He has the father figure of Alfred. And they work together as the new Bat family to protect Gotham. This film has a double meaning of obsession and cooperation. The obsessions of the various villains and even the heroes drive their actions often to extremes, whilst cooperation and understanding that there's some things you can't control, up to and including death, enables them to work together to defeat the villains, save the day, and move on to a brighter future. I'm Professor Alastair Sinclair Smythe. Good afternoon.